Hey everybody, Rex Bear Leak Project. How the heck are you? Somebody asked me just a few minutes ago, they said, I appreciate the podcast, but how in the heck do you do so many of them? And my answer to that is coffee. Right now, I've got an amazing cup of coffee, and there's plenty of caffeine in there. Plus, it's also nice to see the contributions in the comment section. When I read stuff like that, it just motivates me even more, and I just want to do more podcasts. So, when I wasn't presenting this information on YouTube, I was doing it at work. And now it's nice because we have a much bigger platform and I can talk to people like you guys. You guys are amazing. So this podcast, though, has nothing to do with that. It's in reference to, as you can see here on the bottom of the screen, there is, according to multiple articles, 150,000 troops, Chinese troops, being sent to North Korea and the North Korean border. So that is very interesting, to say the least. Now, an article 35 minutes ago said that China deployed 25,000 troops along the North Korean border. Yet, according to Business Insider and Yahoo Finance, 150,000 troops were sent. So maybe it's an additional 25,000. Maybe this is all just wag the dog scenario. But is it North Korea that's really the danger here? Because I don't see North Korea being the danger here at all. And I've talked to you guys about this before. I think it's going to be more a danger of China getting involved. And do you guys remember the 22 million very sensitive accounts that were hacked by the Chinese? I mean, there's multiple articles you can read about this. ABC News, Washington Post. You can read about it New York Times, Money, CNN. Also talks about Yahoo and 500 million accounts that were hacked. And actually, that got increased to 1 billion. So, I mean, hacks happen all the time. I get it. Yet getting access to very sensitive military personnel's data and then starting to do saber rattling involving a bully country that likes to blackmail people with threats, blackmail nations with threats, saying that they're going to shoot out some nukes and shoot some missiles out unless we pay them money, essentially. I mean, you remember that? It seems like every single year it's the same thing. Oh, North Korea. We got to worry about Kim Jong-un and his 80-year-old generals that are surrounding him. And I think that's ridiculous. And you can also get into some statistics. If you go to Global Firepower, KNOEMA.com. I'll leave the link specifically because this is a long URL. But this will give you some statistics and rankings of different countries. And somebody brought up an interesting point the other day about how our military hasn't really been tested since Vietnam that much. I mean, obviously, I've got family that have been in Afghanistan, and certainly the people on the ground have been tested. I mean, they've been shot at, bombs and missiles and stuff going off that I've heard stuff behind the scenes that I'm not going to share on record, talking about the art of war and what goes on in the Middle East. And it's freaky. It is not anything to dismiss and say, oh, it's no big deal. It's not a challenge, because for the people, it's certainly a challenge. I'm talking for the overall archetype of the military, and said, if our military really wanted to, with the space weapons, with the nanotechnologies, with the electronic weapons, with all of the hackers that work for the Department of Defense and the military, if they wanted to just clamp down on these smaller nations, it wouldn't be nearly as difficult as they drag it out to be in a longer process, because obviously the defense industry makes trillions, hundreds of billions of dollars off of the applications and the hardware and everything involved in the art of war. So look at the statistics here. Global firepower for North Korea, 25th. They're ranked 25th. When you look at the annual defense budget, 26th. Now, if you look at the manpower, they're way down there. They're in 46th place. If you look at the tanks, though, they've got a lot of tanks. They're in 7th. If you look at the amount of aircraft, they're in 10th. If you look at the naval strength, they're actually number 1 in naval strength. The U.S. is ranked 3rd in that department. China's above us as well. But how do you compile the naval strength? And how do you figure the data with the military? Because look at all the hundreds of billions of dollars that our military and government has put into the F-35s. And those things, from at least from the reports and the news articles that are coming out, they're still having a ton of issues with them. I've been keeping track of the F-35s for years, and I remember reading reports several years ago about pilots passing out because the sensors were going faulty. I remember reading reports about different microchips in specific drones that were then taking over the drones in the Middle East and sending the coordinates back to a undisclosed location, also changing the direction of the drones and taking over the visual and audio that the drones are picking up. So with all the technologies that are available and accessible to our military, we need to make sure that they protect those assets, because if not, then an offshore faction obviously could use our hardware and our technology against us. So my point about this whole podcast is this saber rattling that's going on with North Korea, with Russia, with China. Let's go back to what happened last year with the supposed Rod of God incident, where a location in China got blasted to smithereens, and the official story was it was a chemical explosion. But if you look at the 42-foot containers out there that got thrown around like boxes of candy that were empty, I mean, just hundreds of them, that location was just blasted to smithereens. There's a lot of speculation that was from a Rod of God type technology, tungsten rods that are shot down from space. So who knows? Maybe they weren't playing ball, because before that, previously, there was a whole bunch of articles about how they kept devaluing their currency, and there were these currency wars going on globally. So it's almost as if there was a faction behind the scenes that said, hey, you're not playing ball with us. We'll show you who's boss. And with the North Korea situation, my gut is telling me that this is a wag the dog scenario. Yet I could be wrong, because I've seen so many wag the dog scenarios in the past, it's hard not to think that. If this is more serious, ladies and gentlemen, if this is the cusp, the beginning of something big, global world war, well, how does it start? Maybe they'll use North Korea as the scapegoat to get into full-blown global war. Now, with all of the information that China has of the very sensitive information that China has been able to access, because they've built microchips that have been put into computers and defense systems for many years here in the States, combined with all the other information that they have and technologies that they have, where is it going to start? Are they going to start shutting down computer grids? Are they going to start shutting down street lights? Are they going to, or have they already put something in certain foods and products that are available here in the States and have been for years? I mean, we know that they make many of the vaccines. We know that many of the food products and beverages that we consume come from China. What could they do to them over there? And are we still going to allow many of our products to be made in China if they push back? What do you guys think? Is this all just wag the dog? Is this all just charades? Or are we getting ready for World War III? Will this be used as a precursor to the Great War? I hope not. I certainly hope not. Now, look at that. 22 million accounts hacked. Seriously. 22 million officials and many of them with very sensitive positions. If you were a foreign nation that wanted to go to war, what would you do before you did it? What would you do before you started, dropping the bombs? Would you obtain as much intel as possible first and get your tentacles in as many different industries as you could? Now remember, they have a large portion of our debt. So if they start, how do I put this? If they start demanding compensation for the debt that they hold, what is that going to lead to? And is Trump specifically in power right now and portrayed as the underdog and all of this psyop and alternative media stuff that's going on that seems to really make it look like he shouldn't be in here now? I'm certainly still leaning towards that direction, that he wasn't supposed to be put in power as the President of the United States. Maybe it gets even deeper than that, and the computers and the algorithms, the predictive programming, the war games, all the scenarios that have been played with the supercomputers, the think tanks, the gurus, those that are in the know and have been in the know on many things that much of us aren't or haven't been available to previously, and maybe some of us are now. Maybe some of us have always had that initial gut feeling as well, always, and we can resonate with it because many of us are inherently born with that. It's embedded literally in our DNA, as kind of woo-woo as that sounds, but I'm going off here a little bit on a tangent. I apologize. Where am I going with this? That's a good question. Where am I going with this? Well, I mean, certainly there is a lot going on right now, and I am bringing this to your attention because I feel that we need to be alert with this, because let's say that we're not going to go to war with World War III. Then, I'm sorry, let's say we're not going to go to war with World War III. This is like my 6th podcast today. I've literally been talking and reading and researching since my first cup of coffee this morning. Literally, I'm starting to, and as you can see, I've got the pyramid is completely, the battery's toast. The battery's toast. That gives you an idea. Just whoa, 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 whoa. I saw this article and I'm like, okay, first it's Russia. First we're friends with Russia, and then no, we're going to go to war with Russia. And now it's North Korea and China. And then I started putting together the pieces about the 22 million accounts that were hacked last year. And I don't know. I'm on the fence here. I'm hoping that it's just a wag the dog scenario. But if so, what is the wag the dog scenario for? Question everything. Be the change you want to see. And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/clandestine Time Lord.